Now, it's of course a somber anniversary, the Guantanamo Bay prison opening, but it raises a lot more issues about this society and where we are as a country and where we're going as a country that I'd like to bring up with our next guest. I want to bring into this conversation Jason Leopold. He's the lead investigative reporter for truthout.org. And Jason, you know, I've been looking through sort of the old clips of having you on the program, and we always love having you on. But it seems like time after time, you know, we have these discussions with you on one Guantanamo anniversary or another, and very little changes in terms of the actual discourse or debate. So instead of doing the stereotypical regular, you know, Obama failed to fulfill his promise of closing that prison segment, and I don't want to absolve the president from failing to fulfill that promise, let's talk a little bit more about what Guantanamo's existence means for this country and how, in my view at least, it seems like it's almost been normalized among us as a society. What's your take?
That's exactly right. In fact, it's very sad that the public more or less has tuned Guantanamo out, has tuned out widespread human rights abuses that continue to take place in Guantanamo. I try to impress this upon people time and again. Indefinite detention, which your reporter spoke about in that segment, is a human rights abuse. It is an issue, an abuse that we condemn other governments for. However, what's happening now is that we have come to accept indefinite detention. We have accepted the fear-mongering that has taken place in the floors of Congress by Democrats and Republicans as just, you know, normal course of doing business, if you will, in Washington. And so Guantanamo truly does represent the normalization, as you mentioned, of what we will see going forward. I think that people are willing to accept it now. It doesn't affect them. Let's face it, they look at this as an issue that they do not need to be concerned about because they still see the majority of people there as terrorists, even though we have seen evidence surface over the years that the vast majority were in fact innocent. But I also think that it's important to state that we have we have tens of thousands of people in prisons in the United States as well who are being tortured psychologically with solitary confinement. That's not something that we find ourselves very concerned about as either.
Well, it's easy and almost, you know, sadly understandable in some ways that people wouldn't really be concerned about something that they don't see, that's not in their everyday lives, that doesn't really affect them right there and then. But I think the problem to me, it seems, and I'd like to get your take on this, is that we are slowly, step by step, trending towards a situation where more and more of these laws, these normalized behaviors are now essentially applying to U.S. citizens, or at least legally there is the opening for U.S. citizens to get caught up in this web of the sort of lack of due right and due process. Talk a little bit about where you see that going and how actual Americans, not just those who are already in prison and, you know, possibly dealing with you know, isolated detention and whatnot, talk about how this could actually impact Americans if these kinds of laws continue to sort of be implemented and take place.
Sure. Well, first of all, you need to go back to immediately after 9/11. I mean, look at the Patriot Act. That's a law. That's a law that does affect U.S. citizens. We have seen evidence in a whistleblower case involving the CIA, in which journalists have found their communications being monitored. The Patriot Act is a very important example because, first of all, Congress continues to reauthorize it, and nobody makes any noise about it. And the laws continue to change in such a way that people, the public, are truly just willing to accept it. But the reason that they're willing to accept it, and I think that this is really important, is that it comes down to politics. It comes down to a certain segment of the public does not want to criticize the Obama administration or Democrats for fear of giving power, if you will, to Republicans. There's this nonsense that's constantly communicated
but you really,
in social media
I'm sorry to interrupt
circles.
you there. You really think that partisan politics would be the thing that's preventing people who actually do understand these developments from speaking out? I mean, that sounds shocking to me.
Absolutely. I absolutely see that. I believe it. And I have experienced it. I can tell you that oftentimes when I will write a story about civil liberties issues that are critical of the administration, critical of policies that are being implemented that further, where civil liberties are further eroded as a result, there's criticism by individuals on social networking platforms such as Twitter, for example, who directly communicate with me and say that you realize that this will result in Newt Gingrich getting elected, something ridiculous such as that.
Well, Jason,
and while it does seem...
Sorry to interrupt you there. You brought up Newt Gingrich. We're just running out of time, and I actually want to bring up a separate sort of point of discussion into this conversation. Now, earlier you talked about sort of the hypocrisy issue that's raised by Guantanamo. We often criticize other countries for torture, for indefinite detention, for behaviors that we ourselves commit. When it comes to the issue of Iran and targeted assassinations, for example, it seems like there is a little bit of doublespeak there, too. Now, I want to play you two sound bites from our two GOP White House contenders. Let's take a listen.
There have been scientists turning up dead in Russia and in Iran. There have been computer viruses. There have been problems at their facility. I hope that the United States has been involved with that.
Maximum covert operations to block and disrupt the Iranian program, including taking out their scientists, including breaking up their systems, all of it covertly, all of it deniable.
Now, yeah, these are two guys with 2 points of views, but you can't deny the fact that they do speak out for some segment of this population. To say that we hope that this country would be behind targeted assassinations abroad, I mean, what's your take of that?
Look, this is, again, this is part and parcel of what unfolded after 9/11. Certainly, it goes back to years before. What happened on 9/11, but this is basically the way that far-right conservatives see U.S. foreign policy: targeted assassinations, drone strikes. Nothing is truly off limits, and the rule of law means nothing to these people.
And I want to very briefly, we're almost out of time. What's your prediction? I mean, if we're talking here 10 years down the line, where's this country going to be?
Well, first of all, I don't think Guantanamo will close. I think Guantanamo will remain open. I think that we'll start to see laws that are implemented down the road that will further strengthen, if you will, the police state, which it sort of seems like we're leaning toward. And it's very troubling. And I think that people need to keep an eye on the reauthorization of these laws, particularly the Patriot Act, which will be coming up soon.
Well, it's hard to keep an eye on when these things happen seemingly behind closed doors and very quickly. And just for a point of reference, it took us 10 years to bring the first responders bill into effect. And of course, this NDAA passage was signed very quickly and passed very quickly. Jason, thank you so much for the work that you do and for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you. Pleasure.